Hello, in this video, we will talk about data visualization in general, and we will talk about some great visualizations, and we'll also talk about some bad visualizations. It's important to know what are some elements of bad visualization as well. So as we know, there's data everywhere these days. Almost 2.5 quintillion bytes of data are created every day these days. And according to some report, every minute, almost 500,000 pictures are shared through Snapchat. More than 120 professionals, that is, two every second, join LinkedIn. And almost 4 million YouTube videos are watched. Almost 500,000 tweets are sent over Twitter, and so on and so forth. You can look at the numbers, and there's a source for these numbers. Now, data by itself in its raw form is hard to interpret. So if I throw this spreadsheet at you and say, oh, tell me something interesting about this, you'll be hard pressed. And I'm just showing you a small sample, only a few rows that could fit on this slide. In reality, this could be 10,000 rows of data or 10 million rows of data. So you can't get much insight by just looking at this data. So we have some total funding column of data, we have funding stage, but it's hard to tell anything useful by looking at this data. Whereas if I converted this into some pictures or total funding distribution, now I can tell a story. Or a total funding distribution in the form of a box and whisker chart. I can tell a story. So on the left, I have a histogram. In the middle, I have a box and whisker chart. And for funding stage, I have a pie chart. So clearly, a lot more can be said. You can tell a story based on these pictures compared to just looking at raw data. And again, this is nothing new. People have known this for hundreds of years, and they have drawn pictures to explain data. So nothing new here. What is new is these days, because of all the computing power and the advances in software engineering, we have some tools today that we did not have even 20 years ago. And we'll be learning some of those tools in this course, tools like Tableau, Excel, Power BI, RapidMiner, etc. So what is data visualization? In short, data visualization is the representation of data in a graphical or pictorial format. So a picture is worth 1,000 words. So visualization is a new storytelling. However, we should learn to distinguish between good visualizations from bad visualizations. So bad data can tell the wrong story or make the story confusing. Similarly, bad visualizations of even good data can lead to wrong conclusions and wrong decisions. Whereas good visualizations can reveal some very useful insights and patterns that can be used for some good decision making. So let's look at some examples of bad visualizations. That's too many pies in this pie chart. Same problem here. Too many pies, too many categories in this pie chart. Not much more useful than raw data. A little bit more useful, but not a whole lot. So for the big pies, yeah, there's some use. You can tell which ones are bigger. But amongst the smaller ones, there's hardly any value added. Okay, this one is interesting. It looks like a donut chart, which is basically a variation of a pie chart. But look at the percentages here. Now it's supposed to add up to 100. This one clearly exceeds 100, so not a good idea. Now look at this pie chart. Oh, the size of the pies should be proportional to the percentages, but this one does not look like that way. Okay, here it looks like we have a column chart. So this is 39% and this is 1%. I would have expected this one to be almost 39, almost 40 times taller than this one, but that's not the case. So the heights of the column should be proportional to the values, otherwise it's misleading. Let's look at this one. This looks like a bar chart. So this represents 41,000. This one is 110,000. So clearly the lengths of the bars are not in proportion to the values, which defeats the whole purpose of a bar chart. How about this? This looks like a bar chart, but it's really not a chart, it's just a table. But they've drawn a table that kind of looks like a bar chart. So clearly these bars are not proportional to the values, but then if you look closely, they're not really bars, they're just values written in a table. So not a good way to represent a table either. Then this one, so the time is represented vertically through these colors. So this is generally not a good idea. Time is better placed on the x-axis. Here the title says incidents by incident type tier 1 and tier 2. But in the rest of the picture, I don't see any tier 1 and tier 2. So I really don't know which one of this is tier 1 and which is tier 2. And also, they have drawn what is a nominal qualitative variable on the x-axis and tried to draw a line chart which basically gives a shape. But if it's a nominal qualitative variable on the x-axis, the ordering does not matter, which means what? Which means if I change the ordering, the shape of these lines will change. And I'm allowed to change the ordering because it's nominal. So a line chart is actually not a good idea for a qualitative nominal variable. So what's the problem here and here? There's misleading scale on the y-axis. So it seems like the value has dropped a lot, whereas it has only dropped by roughly 50%. So roughly 4,500 to roughly 2,200, so about 50%. It appears as if it has fallen a lot more. Similarly here, it has fallen from 54,000 to 52,000, but it appears as if it has lost almost half its value. That's because the y-axis is probably starting at 50,000. So that's not good. There's another problem here. There's missing years. So 2012 to 13 to 17. So this drop actually happened over 4 years, but it appears as if it happened over 1 year. And look at the gap between 2017 and 18. It's actually a longer gap here than these 4 years. So these are all misleading visualizations. In fact, I can show you a live chart on yahoo.com. Look at this one. This is Apple price over the last 6 months. Look at the y-axis, starts at 60. This is live. You could pull this up. So companies like yahoo.com are drawing charts that are misleading. So if I had drawn this chart from y equal to 0, this increase would not appear as steep as it is appearing right now. I don't know what this is. I've tried to understand it, but it makes no sense. I would rather read a paragraph about this than look at this picture. This one to me is too confusing. It's too busy. Too busy. Then there's some examples of very interesting visualizations. I think this is a very cool visualization. So this is about a Euro Cup soccer, and this is time, May 8th, this is actually 2012, May 8th, May 9th, May 10th, and so on during the championship. So here, red is Spain, this blue is Italy, and the heights of these are showing the frequency of tweeting and the loudness of cheering that's happening by these teams. So as this championship progressed, different countries were tweeting at different frequencies and cheering differently. You can tell the finals was between Italy and Spain. So if you look up Euro Cup 2012, the finalists were Italy and Spain. Italy actually won. So I thought this was a very interesting visualization. Oh, here's another very interesting visualization. This shows Picasso's works of art, and they have drawn it in a way that the whole picture looks like Picasso's work of art. Lessons from those we've lost. So there's a website which shows you some good visualizations, although one could argue that this is also very busy, but it's an interesting idea. This one is also an interesting visualization. It shows employment or unemployment. So loss in jobs by various sectors over the years. So this was a recession period. More more sectors went in negative, very few stayed in positive territory, and during recovery, more positive gains and less negatives. And this one is static, but this came out of a graph where each dot, if you look at each dot, you can tell which sector it is, which sector of jobs it is. And this one, actually, we saw these numbers earlier of activity per minute. So on one of the earlier slides in this presentation, we saw these numbers. This is another interesting visualization of intangible cultural heritage. Now, in this course, we will not get into drawing these types of visualizations, although when you look at Tableau, you will see that it has the ability to draw these kinds of visualizations. And now the trend these days is going towards some dynamic visualizations. This website has some examples of dynamic visualizations. Not all of these visualizations are dynamic, but if you look at this one, this is actually showing dynamically how things are changing over time, where the wild things glow. Atlas of the moons, a view of display. Not all of them are dynamic, but some of them are. Okay, but these are some interesting, this one is dynamic infographics, I suppose. Many shapes of England's cricket stadiums. Okay, so this was just an overview of what is visualization, some examples of bad visualizations, you should avoid those, and some examples of interesting visualizations, and some examples of dynamic visualizations. So that's the end of this video. Thank you.